Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Cosmic Owl Astrology with Louise Eddington, the cyberpunk witch priestess to the stars. And welcome to all you witch priestesses. I am fired up today. A friend of mine was given a book for Christmas and she posted it on Facebook, fellow astrologer, and it's a book called Hecate or Hecate, however you say it. I don't care. And it's by an author called Nikita Gill. She's of Indian descent, East Indian descent, but she was actually born in Belfast, Northern Ireland, where I lived. Anyway, I'm on the second listen to this book already because most of you know that I love Hecate and she's strong in my chart. And I'm going to do a video on what I've found out about her astrology, but I invite you to check her out. And I always feel that these things come to me at the moment I am meant to find them. So before I dive into the week ahead, this is the week ahead forecast. As usual, I'm going to show the cards. I'm going to go through the aspects through the week. I'm going to help try to explain what they might bring up for you. But I also, as always, I really invite you to take in the energies and how you can perhaps respond and work with the energies rather than be thrown around by the energies. Okay. Also, check out the interview I did with Marina Orms. Yes, I uploaded it yesterday anyway. Who wrote Cycles of Healing, which I think is a great book too. I'm a writer. I've written 4 books. I've got 2 more on the go and more to come. So, but before I show you the cards, I quickly want to show you one thing about Nikita Gill's astrology because we don't know her birth time. Has mentioned her birthday on her Instagram. Check out her Instagram. It's so inspirational. She's also did a TED talk. Oh, anyway, unsurprisingly, her sun is at 28 degrees Gemini, which is opposing, it's sitting right on my descendant. So her ascent, this is not her ascendant, descendant. We don't know a time, but her sun is sitting on my descendant, and her Ceres, which is the great mother goddess, is at 28 degrees 37 Sagittarius, which is on my ascendant and on the galactic center. So more to come on her astrology. She's an astounding young woman. Her chart is lit up by transits right now. So more, I'm going to do that video as soon as I have time. Anyway, but check out that book. And she's written some other books, and now I want every single book. And she's a poet and a playwright, and she's powerful. Okay, so I'll put some links below. I'll put the link to her Hecate book. Remember, I do get a couple of cents if you buy through my Amazon link. You don't have to. I know some of you won't buy from Amazon. I'm stuck with Amazon as an author in many ways, so we work with what we have, right? But I'll also link to a TEDx talk she did, and I think you'll be as smitten as me if you believe that we can rewrite the story of what it is to be a woman, and rewrite the story of the patriarchy and rise up. So anyway, so here onto the week. So I pulled 6 cards. Okay, I know I'm mad, but I just inspired by this book. I thought these cards need to be heard. So as usual, I've pulled the 3 tarot cards. I might actually be returning to the Red Seeds Tarot after this. I always do what speaks to me, but we'll see. So I pulled the 7 of Threads. This deck came to me when I was doing the Venus retrograde last March, and we've got another Venus retrograde later in the year, so I want to see what deck speaks to me for that. Anyway, so we got the 7 of Threads, 2 of Blades, and the Goddess of Discs. Oh, and I pulled 3 cards from the Witch Oracle deck. Very appropriate for what I'm what the inspiration that's coming in from Nikita Gill's book. Anyway, so the first card for the week is the Trailblazer. And this is the Sisterhood of Reciprocity. And this is Did the Divine Masculine, interestingly enough. Now, I just do want to quickly show you one screenshot of one of her quotes on Instagram. So I'm crediting Nikita Gill with this, but I'm going to show it to you before we dive into the astrology. And this speaks to me. Entire planet could be frolicking in the woods and meadows, but instead we have to fight fascism because too many of you love rich people and bigotry more than you love yourselves. Bam! Head explodes. Because I'm always on about we have to learn to love ourselves and then we can change the world. And this is what I feel my mission is through astrology and all the things I do. Really, my mission is to change the world one person at a time, just by inspiring you and helping you to learn to love yourselves. And astrology is a tool to do it. So there you go. I figured out my big mission in life. Not all of us have to stand on street corners picketing or run for office. There are many ways to change the world, right? And she's doing it through her art. I hope I'm doing my part through astrology, through these videos, through trying to change the lens of astrology so that's less patriarchal. Anyway, I'm going on again. So the week ahead, January the 11th, 2026. We're already almost halfway through January as we start the week. Looking back on last week, I did kind of warn you that, that full moon, the Cancer full moon, that was on the 3rd was a biggie. And what happened on the 3rd was that, there was the US and Trump basically kind of went into Venezuela and kidnapped Maduro. And it's quite clear, really, that this is for greed for the oil because he's saying it and he's now saying this is our hemisphere and things like that. So I don't want to go into things like that. But I do want to say that we are at peak, in my opinion. We are at peak imperialism, autocracy, whatever you want to call it. They are really kind of at the peak, trying to grab the whole power, everything. And it's just, if we see it, then we can change it, right? And we can rewrite this whole story. As she said, we could all be frolicking in the woods if we learned to love ourselves. Anyway, so she speaks my language, as you can tell. So as we go into the week, we do have the Libra moon in Libra. Okay, finishing up the journey in Libra, in the sign of the scales. The moon has just opposed Chiron and Eris. And that's important because Chiron has just stationed retrograde. Chiron actually stationed retrograde at 22 degrees 35 minutes on January the 2nd. But it's also important because Eris is stationing direct this week. So we'll look at all of that. So we start the week with the moon opposing it, the moon in the sign of balance, justice, harmony, or at least justice seeking, balance seeking. Okay, the sign is the scales, and the scales can veer wildly. And as we approach that, people are starting to talk more and more about Jack Smith's testimony, or whatever you want to call it, and how, he was so certain and so sure that, Donald Trump was guilty of January the 6th. Without it, it would not have happened. There were many other things to it. I'm not going to go into the whole report. I think everybody should read it personally. And This is kind of the shake-up, and it was deliberately released, the actual report or transcript of his testimony, and the video now as well. It was deliberately released in the quiet of the new year so people would not notice. But that's as Chiron was about to station direct, right? And now fast forward just 9 days later, the moon of justice is looking towards that, and we are now in a waning moon. Okay. So now on with the actual aspects for the day. Early in the morning, we have Vesta, who is the state as well. She is the flame of the state that keeps the state burning. But Vesta is about to leave Capricorn, which is our institutions and man-made laws and things, which are definitely collapsing. How we're going to look, we do not know. But for you personally, Vesta is also your inner flame, and she starts the week at this anaretic degree, which is that liminal changes coming degree, and she aspects Neptune, which is also at that last anaretic degree. And as this is happening, all of these energies are moving inexorably through these last 3 signs of the zodiac, and eventually we're going to have a massive pile up in Aries, the new start, new paradigm. The old ways are dying. To me, this astounding lineup is the end of the age that we are leaving in many ways. Things never kind of shake out exactly to a day, but this is just huge. But anyway, Vesta aspecting Neptune. Part of that, I think, is that inner realization that everything is interconnected and that we have to tune into our inner flame to do that healing from the inside out. We cannot rely on them to fix it, anybody else. That doesn't mean not holding people accountable, but we each have to do our part, whether it's through art or whatever. Anyway. Then the moon in Libra, before it leaves the sign of Libra, will make a quincunx to Uranus and a quincunx to Neptune. And these two are within orb of their sextile, which has been exact already, but will be exact again. This is also forming a brief finger of destiny or yod in Libra. So that will be at 27 degrees and 29 degrees when the moon is exactly aspecting those. But that's, to me, saying this is saying we are making very revolutionary change, or we are invited to revolutionary change, that this revolutionary change is coming from the inside out again, and through love, creativity, joy, fun. Right? I keep yammering all of this in. I know I get this thumbs down every week from God knows who. You're welcome. I love you, whoever it is. Whatever. I'm doing me, and I want to change the world. I'm not hurt. I don't care. It's just, I find it really weird that people do that. Anyway, then the moon, before moving into Scorpio, will actually square Vesta. So, that's all of those are coming together at these very liminal threshold of change degrees. More change is coming, but this is the waning moon. This is the releasing. This is seeing what we're seeing, and things are starting to collapse and die and go away because so many cycles are ending. Then on January the 11th, we have the first big aspect of the day, and it is big, so I am going to get it exact because I mentioned that Chiron has just stationed direct back on January the 2nd. And we've just also, as I speak, right yesterday, had the Venus star point. We also had the Mars cazimi, all of this opposing Jupiter. bigger earthquakes are coming. Luckily, nothing really massive so far. We had a 6.5 in the Philippines, my app said, because this is earthquake energy, like within and without. But as we move into next week, because I'm recording this on Wednesday, the whatever date it is, the 7th, Venus is still in under the beams of the sun, will be till February the 17th. And look, on the full moon on the 3rd, we had Venus this side of the sun, Mars this side of the sun. Now the divine masculine and feminine have swapped around, and both are the opposite sides of the sun. This is a real kind of realizing we have to come together. The yin, the yang, the divine masculine and feminine within each of us. Okay, anyway, but Venus aspect will square Chiron at its station direct degree. All right, so this is 22. This is the master builder number. Chiron is both the wound, which we have to shine the light into first, and the medicine. Venus is soaking this up, and this is in cardinal signs of yes, we can. But yes, we can, but it's going to be a slow drive out of this mess we're in. That's okay, we're at the end of an age. And Venus is creativity, love, relationships, but she is also our social mores, our social values, all of these kinds of things, both personally and collectively. So Venus is squaring off to Chiron and saying, okay, we can build something new. We can literally be frolicking in the woods and meadows, as Nikita Gill said. You're going to hear me quoting her a lot because she's amazing. But you can see also the moon is in Scorpio by that point. And then as right after the Venus square Chiron aspect, the moon will square off to Pluto. More and more, I believe Pluto is actually kind of the grandmother energy. Yes, it's Hades, but all these myths are also written by men. I think this is, going into our divine feminine root energy, right into the underworld of ourselves. And Pluto digs up the shadow, both out there and within, and finds our buried treasure, as well as getting rid of what we don't need anymore, all those layers of whatever we've got trapped inside us. And the moon is in Scorpio, which is Pluto's sign by modern astrology. And then the moon will meet Haumea, which is regeneration and rebirth. And you've heard me saying many times that Pluto and Haumea are squaring off 13 times in this decade. The last one will be in the spring of 2028. So we have 2 this year. We've got 5 more. 5 more of the 13. So those 2 are heading towards another square. And this is, to me, one of the aspects of the decade that is transforming who we are and asking us to literally birth something new. Okay. So I know I'm taking a long time over the first day. Then the moon will sextile Juno. Juno is the sacred contracts. By the way, I left this one in. This is Asteria. She was Hecate's mother. So I'm just playing with her for a little bit. She's actually she was actually conjunct Hecate at the start of this week as I discover this woman. Those 2 are traveling together. We are rediscovering or rewriting or remembering how powerful the feminine was historically before we squashed it out. Okay, so I'm leaving her in for a bit. I know you all go, oh my God, there's so much in there, but this is kind of how I work, so whatever. Anyway, Vesta. Then Vesta moves into Aquarius. Let me get Vesta into Aquarius. I hope I'm making you guys laugh today because various things are happening in my life, and my soul, my spirit from the inside out. And really, I'm at the stage of not giving two F's. What people think of me. I'm going to do me. I'm going to kind of go follow the energies of what I'm here to feel I'm here to do. Okay. So later on January the 11th, Vesta moves into the sign of Aquarius. And, you know, I've talked about it. All these energies are slowly moving through these last three signs. She moves into the sign of Aquarius, which is the sign of the future. It's the sign of long-term goals. It's the sign of seeing the bigger picture. It's the sign of humanitarianism, the collective as well. It also has its shadow, of course. But what are we doing here? What are we choosing to do? We're choosing to kind of take a step back, try and look at the bigger picture and see how we can be a part of pulling all these strands together to rewrite the future, right? From within. Okay. Okay, right after that, Saturn. Saturn squares off to Hygeia. I've actually taken Hygeia off. Let me put her back on. I'm going to put Black Moon Lilith back on as well. But Hygeia has been retrograde. She's gone back into Gemini, the sign of alliances, community, also perception, thoughts, ideas. And Saturn squares off to Hygeia and says we have to change how we see things. In other words, yes, again, we have to stop frolicking in the woods. Sorry, we have to stop just kind of being passive, and just fight fascism so that we can all be frolicking in the woods and meadows. We have to love ourselves, heal from the inside out. I'm going to batter on about that forever. Okay. I know I'm right because I just feel it, and it's changing my life from working from this approach. Okay. Then, woo, big excitement for me, at least. Right after that, Eris, table turner, fighter for outsiders, fighter for those deemed ugly. Now, again, I'm going to say that this is the patriarchy again. This is how, the divine feminine in all its forms, within men, within women, actual women, people of color, anything that is other, really, that is not kind of very rational, empirical, strong, tough, divine masculine kind of shadow energy has been demonized for centuries. And Eris she was an outsider like that. She was called the goddess of discord because she threw the apple to the fairest into the wedding. But again, remember, we are basing this on myths written by men, and she stations direct on at this time, late on the 11th. And this means both of these are moving towards this figure here, which I have not talked about before. This is the south node of Chiron. Now, I'm going to go back and listen or go through, because I have the Kindle version as well, a book on planetary nodes. There's been a lot of historical events when planetary bodies conjunct the south node of Chiron. And Chiron is heading towards a conjunction with its south node. It's quite a while away. I do want to kind of show... No, I'm not going to show you when it is. I'm doing some research on this. But I do want to say that that's a part of the big change as well. But if you add that to all the other big changes we have that are really completely unprecedented in anything we can find in recorded history, maybe 26,000 years ago at the end of the last great age and the start of the next one, maybe there was some astrology like that, but not in this age. Not in this great age, not in our collective consciousness. None of these things have happened that we altogether that we know of. So just saying. But I'm also saying that Eris stationing direct on the 11th means that from when I record this on the 7th and it right through next week, she is really at her station point. And I've said it before that when planets are stationed direct or retrograde, they are more potent. So we're seeing tables being shaken. We are seeing people rise up. We are discovering other people doing it, like Nikita. Yes, I'm obsessed. It's such a good book as well, though. So anyway, she's an amazing flipping writer. Okay, last aspect for Sunday the 11th, and I promise I'll move on, but it's quite appropriate actually, so I'm actually going to get the aspect exact. The moon, I'm laughing, will sextile Hecate, which is the name of the book. I love that she actually reads the Audible herself. So anyway, the moon gets to 8 Scorpio. The moon will sextile Hecate, and Hecate is the goddess of the crossroads. She's the goddess of, she's a necromancer as well. She's kind of a witchcraft. She's the keeper of the keys to the underworld, or to the worlds, really. She is a way shower, and she is a very powerful triple moon goddess. I love how in the book Nikita Gill has a literally splitting off into 3 sometimes, because it's all that she's learning about how she was one of the Titans, and she was taken down in the Titanomy, I think, am I saying that right? When the Olympian gods took over, that's when the patriarchy really flipping started, right? Anyway, the moon will sextile Hecate then, but also sextiles Asteria, her mother. Okay, these were powerful energies in the old gods. I think the old gods are returning, and we are going to kind of reinvent all that as well. I don't think of the gods as real people, by the way. They're cosmic energies. So before you anybody kind of says that. Anyway. Oh gosh. January the 12th. I'll try and be quicker. I'm so excited by all the things I'm discovering. And because of how I work, I believe that all these things are coming in because they are part of the shift. So that's why I feel I have to tell you. But lucky for you, there's less aspects on the 12th. So you can see the moon is starting the day in Scorpio. And now the moon gets to 10 degrees and aspects the moon's nodes, its own nodes. And the moon is now moving towards that north node again. And these north nodes are in that practical, earthy, meaningful, mystical kind of axis, pulling us to remember that we are already all interconnected. So over and over. And then the moon will sextile Pholus. Remember, Pholus is kind of cause and effect, doing an inventory, not in the way of doing an inventory of shaming and making ourselves wrong, more in the way of saying, let me look back at my life and take an inventory, and when I know better, when I can see it, how the upbringing, the things I did, part of the upbringing, were part of where we are now, and now because I can see it, I can change it and do things differently. So the lid's off, and we are seeing all this, both individually and collectively, and how we can do things differently. And those are the people that are conscious and aware and tuning into this are the forerunners of doing things differently. Okay, so just anyway, then the moon will make a lovely water trine to talk to the hand asteroid Lilith. So there we are again, saying, nope, we're not going to do this. We just keep getting these nudges. Bit further, right? Okay. Then the Capricorn sun, Venus is pulling away from the sun fast. Mars is still at the same degree as the sun, but the sun is pulling away from Mars just because of the orbits of their cycles. The sun squares off to Chiron, following Venus's square, and speaking from the Venus star point perspective, which was at 16 Capricorn, where Mercury is now, this is this 9.5 month cycle that began at 16 Capricorn between Venus and the Sun, moving towards a retrograde in October, and I'll be doing my class again, and the last ever Venus star point in Scorpio, more on that later, is kind of like it's that kind of waning cycle of a big, big, big cycle. And Venus is now leading the way. She will emerge as evening star, which is the more peace, love, goddess kind of energy, gradually moving right round the zodiac again to here. So, and then the Sun will also obviously follow her. So, and the Sun will catch up to Venus in September. This is such a big time, guys. Anyway, I can't. So the Sun squaring off to Chiron is yet again looking at the wound that the light has shone in. We're seeing the wound as, if you could call it, the shadow of this masculine energy, this might is right kind of energy, this kind of, power over paradigm. Oh God, it's done my hand up thing. Let the power over paradigm rather than the power from within paradigm. It's dying. It will go. But again, we kind of have to see it too. I don't know how to pull my hand down. That's fine. Okay, then on January the 12th as well, the Scorpio moon will also sextile Mercury, and then the moon will trine Jupiter as Mercury comes up to start opposing Jupiter, kind of finishing all these personal planets' opposition to Jupiter. And this cardinal T-square will start to fade some. Okay, some lesser kind of, the personal planets are really kind of speaking to us. And to me, that says, because it's the personal planets, that adds to that feeling of it's each person coming from within to do it. Let's start learning to love yourself. And again, the moon will square Chariklo last of all on the 12th. She is the spinner of grace, helping us to spin and weave this new story. She is holding space for us to keep weaving another thread, perhaps pulling in another thread, spinning that one, weaving that. She's very patient and she is amazing. All right, January the 13th. Venus will now square off to Eris, the table turner, who's still at her station degree, very potent. Obviously, you're probably going to realize by now that the Sun is coming up to do that too. So Chiron, the wound and the medicine, then the table turner, then standing up for ourselves and outsiders and not being deemed ugly or wrong or shameful or things like that. This is really kind of facing up to these energies, right? Okay, so that we can change them. And then the Scorpio moon is also pretty much at the same time. Yep. Going to sextile the Sun. Yeah, that's it. But the moon will also sextile Mars first. Okay, so there are all of those things too. And did I jump ahead a little bit? Maybe. Oh, whatever. Maybe I was finishing the first day. On the 30th, oh no, Venus did start the day with the square to Eris. Then the moon. The moon will sextile Mars. Traditional guide for the sign of Scorpio. We are digging deep right now. Okay, digging really deep. You might find yourself doing some really big actions or a lot of smaller actions to let go of things that are not showing that you love yourself more and that you have overgiven. I've had to let go of a couple of people in my life. I think I mentioned it last week. That's okay. I love them still, but you know, they they chose to go, shall I say. And so, it's this way. It's just, you can't do what you're here to do in the world. And if, like me, you feel like you're a part of wanting to change the world, then you must kind of follow these nudges, let go, just step into it and really stand in your power, which is very scorpionic anyway. So the moon will sextile Mars, sextile the sun, and then obviously sextile Venus. So on that day, Vesta, meanwhile, is in Aquarius. We'll trine Sedna over here in Gemini. Sedna is spiritual destiny through crisis. She is speaking to that, going, how do we kind of change our perceptions and write that new story from the inside out? And then the moon will square off to Pallas Athena and trine Saturn. Just, this is more of the end of letting go of some old things and writing and starting to write that new story from the inside out of everything. And the moon in the afternoon will then oppose Uranus. It's probably going to hit Black Moon Lilith again, who is bobbling back and forth, bringing some more truth out, bringing some truth about shame, I'm going to say, okay, because, as I mentioned at the start, all of this society that we've done has made anything that is other, or made it shameful, so that we are ashamed to be our true powerful selves. Everybody, this is even the damaged beings at the top. Probably a lot of why they are doing what they're doing is because of their internal shame, right? So anyway, that's not forgiving them. That's not saying it's okay before anybody jumps down my throat, as people love to do. Anyway, Mars square Chiron again, that master builder number. So all three of these have squared off to Chiron, which is just station direct, saying, yeah, we can build it. We can change things. Then the moon moves into Sagittarius at 6:33 p.m. The moon will oppose Sedna. Not going to go into that really. A couple of other aspects are that Mercury over here will sextile Nessus. Nessus is that abuses of power, that toxicity energy, outing that poisons or seeing them. I think we're going to see a lot more in the news about this toxicity. It's in our faces now. It's basically being said out loud, right? But doesn't that mean that we can't be more aware of it and say, no, we don't like this. This is not okay. Does to me. And then Pallas Athena over here, the strategist, the goddess of, she was actually a goddess of, arts as well, interestingly. And she was quite the warrior woman. So, I'll be looking at her in Nikita Gill's chart. But Pallas Athena will trine off to Hygeia, which is preventative health and the medicine. So, okay, what can we do? On to January the 14th, Wednesday. The moon is still in Sagittarius, and the moon spends just over a couple of days in each sign, and the moon will sextile Pluto, is now heading towards the sun, so to the next new moon. Okay, so we're really in the releasing phase of just that lunar phase, letting go of things that were seeded at the last new moon, which was in Capricorn, and then we're heading towards the next new moon. But the moon will sextile Pluto. That's digging again into this kind of both digging up your inner gold, but also releasing the crap, the stuff that's been buried deep from whatever upbringing you may have experienced. And then Mercury over here will oppose Jupiter, And that really is, as I mentioned before, kind of this T-square is going to start to fade. This cardinal T-square of initiating change. Okay. Then the sun over here will square off to Eris. Table turner, still at her station point. People are going to be more and more determined to kind of walk into the temple and turn tables over, if that makes sense. Being the temple being the world. Okay. And then the moon will square off to the nodes. And again, that's also another point of moving towards where we are all being collectively pulled towards the Pisces North Node. And I've never seen us being pulled towards the North Node collectively in such a big way, but we are. And so it's that remembering that we're interconnected, remembering that love and joy and creativity is the answer, and we're starting to see it. Okay. And then the moon will trine beautiful Ceres in Aries, who again is asking us to kind of get that rod of iron in our back and make sure we take care of our own needs, learn to love ourselves, and then we can help others. We can breathe it, be part of the change. January the 15th. The sun at 27 Capricorn. Ding ding. That's one of the degrees Pluto chain station direct at back when Pluto was in Capricorn. So, activations. But anyway, as our institutions collapse, because they need to, they do not support everybody. We need complete radical rebirth and change. Venus will sextile Saturn, another closing cycle. Interestingly, Venus was retrograde in this area of the chart back in March, so there's going to be some more activations from back in March. But now this is the closing cycle, and Saturn is moving out of Pisces. This Pisces, interestingly, this is kind of a mutual reception. Venus is exalted in Pisces. She likes the sign of Pisces. Saturn is the guide for Capricorn. So these two are speaking to each other, and this is saying more collapse, but more let it go. But this is collapse of limiting beliefs. This is collapse of believing that these systems and structures were great because perhaps they weren't. We're each going to start to see this in our own way. And I'm not just talking about the USA, by the way. I'm talking about globally, all right? Okay. And then the moon will square off to talk to the hand asteroid Lilith and saying vision, bring in, shoot your arrows to the future. What is the future? What do you want the future to look like? Would you like us all to be frolicking in the woods and meadows? Personally, I would. Venus is over here again, still in Capricorn, still at that 27 degree mark, which incidentally is the number of the bodhisattva energy. But anyway, Venus will trine Uranus. Radical change. Uranus is in Venus sign, Taurus, and this is the sign of the earth and values and rootedness and body. What radical changes do we need to make from the inside out? Okay. And then, and some of it is just acceptance that this is going to change no matter what, and we have to adapt. Okay, some of it is that. Then the Sagittarius moon will sextile Chariklo, again helping us to kind of maybe weave yet one more thread in this new story. Okay, and spin, which usually is pulling all this like that rough threads of it all into a neat thread to write the new story. Then Hecate, still with her mum, Asteria. I'm going to look into Asteria more for next week, thanks to this book. Hecate will sextile the nodes. I think Hecate is an extremely important asteroid in astrology. I've worked with her for years, but I've built up my understanding of her because she is literally the goddess of the crossroads, and she is the key to all the worlds, bringing everything together. She helped Demeter find Kore or Persephone. Kore became Persephone, if you like, became queen of the underworld, married Hades, and there was a reunification. So Hecate is really about reunification too, at a crossroads. So this is why I use her so much. And I always think these astrological astrological energies are really kind of guiding us of how we can work best at this time, because we were born in this time. We just were. We deal with it. We work with it. We be a part of creating the frolicking in the woods and meadows future. Then the moon in Sagittarius will trine Chiron, and then of course trine Eris. This is fire, this is passion. This is saying, yes, we can really get fired up to be a part of this change. Okay. And then we'll oppose Hygeia. I'm not even going to go into those aspects. January the 16th. Things are getting tighter and tighter here, right? This is just like kind of nuts. By this time, Mercury has already moved to 22 degrees. We're in the last 10 degrees, the decan of Capricorn, which incidentally is how did she show me? Control. I'm just getting the decans. Okay. Decan ruler. I'm going to have to leave it like that. I probably have to go back over. But anyway, this is the sun's decan, so of Capricorn. So this is kind of like shining a big light on it, but the sun is the core of us, remember? So I'll get rid of that. And saying we can change at the core, and so we can change the world at its core too. How we live on the world collectively. Anyway, January the 16th. The moon is just finishing up its journey through Sagittarius. Will move into Capricorn at 6:47 a.m. So after that, before that though, the moon will aspect Pallas Athena, strategy, warrior, arts, creativity, many things, pattern seer, okay. Fire and air, it's very creative, very passionate, okay. So then the moon will square off to Saturn before moving into Capricorn and saying, yeah, we can really push. We are beginning to see this, and we are beginning to know that we can do this. But all of this is going to move towards each other, ready for this big pile up in Aries in April, saying this is the new beginning. What are we going to make it look like? Okay. So this is really important for us each to do our inner work through this and to say, yeah, this is what I'm here for. Don't care what you think, kind of thing. Not in a cruel way. It's just like, step into your wholeness, do your thing, be a part of it. I'm hoping to really inspire everybody to kind of follow what I'm seeing. So that's what my role is. Because somebody messaged me on Facebook saying, I hope the planets do something or other. And she's lovely. And I said, the planets don't do anything. They are giving us these cycles to work with. And the cosmos is love at its heart. And if we heed its message and work with the energies then we can create the world a better place in the world. It might feel like the planets are doing things to us, but no. No, they to quote the old phrase, planets impel, they do not compel. They don't make you do anything. Shit happens, and it's how you respond to it. Okay. Anyway, Mercury, it gets to that 22-degree mark, master builder number, square to Chiron, and so this is bringing the mind into it. We had Venus, which is, again, relationships, but also values, and it's creation. It's manifestation in many ways. Then we had the sun, the very core, energy, will, drive, squaring off, but they're all moving towards this, saying, okay, what do I have to release before we move into this next year? Well, not next year, it's April. We're in that year now, into basically the start of something very new. Perhaps, on the solstice, all those things changing. Whoa, shivers. And then the moon will square off to Neptune, and that is telling us what we need to let go of, what we need to see more of, but also what we need to do more of, love, and be more of, love. Mars on the 16th has got to 24 degrees and squares off to the table turner. You see how all these things are working together? And because Mercury, Venus, and Mars are the three most personal planets, I'm going to say, series. But anyway, these three are the most personal planets, other than the luminaries, which are the sun and moon. This is really personal. This is really saying we have to learn to love ourselves, change ourselves, shake up tables within ourselves, if you like, see the wounds within ourselves so that we can be the medicine, so that it ripples out. And then the moon moves into the sign of Capricorn at 6:47 a.m. And you'll be glad we're nearly done. Anyway, before we finish on the 16th, the moon catches up to Juno in Capricorn, sacred contracts with each other, really kind of being determined to bring things together, to really acknowledge our sacred contracts with everything. Okay. Right, on to the 17th, last day of the week. The 17th, the moon gets to 9 Capricorn early in the morning and conjuncts Asteria. So again, I'm going to look into her a bit more thanks to the book, but she was a really powerful goddess in the old gods before the Olympian gods took over. Okay. And then that aspects the nodes, which is our collective future. So there you go. But then, of course, the moon conjuncts Hecate as well. So anyway, crossroads. Get determined to do this, but get determined to leave old stuff behind. Let things go. Let some things collapse. It might not be easy, but in this period, we have to let that go. We have to say, this has got to go, or we make space for the new. Call it that way. And this, then the moon, of course, will conjunct Hecate, as I said. But before that does, Venus, look where she is now. She's at that anaretic liminal change degree of the zodiac again, sextile to Neptune. And Venus and Neptune are kind of co-rulers of Pisces. Venus is exalted in there. This is moving us more towards love, creativity, joy, frolicking, all those kind of things. We're at another threshold. Okay. If we choose it. And then the moon will square the moon will square Ceres over here. again, put the big push to go within and make sure you are loving yourself and meeting your own needs, or making sure your own needs are met, so that you can create from the inside out and bring back the Divine Mother in many ways. Okay, and then the moon will conjunct Pholus. I'm not going to go into all these aspects. I've talked about these energies. And then the sun will sextile Saturn. And the sun is now going towards the end of this this sign. Okay, structures, man-made rules, but also kind of elder wisdom. We're learning a lot about what we should be determined to rebuild after this period of release and endings of cycles. So, it's not like Capricorn is a bad sign. It really is not. I would call it it's the current structures we live under, which is basically hierarchical, control and domination, patriarchal, blah, blah, blah. Release it. Let it go. We don't want to do that anymore, right? Anyway, the sun sextiles Saturn, repeating what Venus did. Then Mercury squares Eris, turning some tables, bringing the mind in, but also voice. Okay. And you'll see it happening out there, but we are all doing it. Okay. Uranus then will square off to Pallas Athena over here. Again, remember this is the Bodhisattva number, but Pallas is really squaring off to Uranus. Pallas is the faster moving energy, but this is like radically different pattern making. This is seeing things radically differently. This is very much about aha moments, shaking up the paradigm. Like, oh my God, I could do that differently. Oh my God, I could write that differently. I could take that approach differently. This is what's happening, really. Okay. And it's very much, oh my God, energy. Like, aha. Okay. Yeah. I've seen that. I've read that now. I see that differently. Oh my goodness. Okay. Then Venus moves into Aquarius 2 at 7:43 a.m. on the last day of the week we're looking at. So loosening the energy of Capricorn, strengthening the energy of Aquarius, moving everything even further towards the end of the zodiac, before moves into Aries. I kind of love that Ceres, the Great Mother, though, is leading the way into Aries, right? Just saying, of the personal planets. But anyway, my book, always a workshop coming to watch this space. March 7th, 8th. It's an intensive workshop where we'll be doing deep work with Ceres and looking at Ceres in people's charts. So watch this space. Jupiter. Okay. Jupiter over here in Cancer, kind of on its own over there, really. Jupiter kind of has been holding this energy of all this stuff in Capricorn, in the sign of Cancer, which is the sign of birth, the sign of the mother, the sign of the family, the sign of self-love, the sign of nurturing. Jupiter trines off to Nessus, the poisons, the toxins, saying, let this go, wash it away, all of that. And then the sun over here will trine Uranus. More ahas. My God, we're going to get some ahas this week. But we're also going to get probably some quite radical shakeups out there. Some quite revolutionary shifts. Some might become as shocks. Okay, so, expect the unexpected with Uranus. I think we are going to get that with these aspects to Uranus from these personal planets. And some of these shocks, even if they're out there, may reverberate within you. But this is it's asking you to go, oh, let me look at that and let me do this differently or see this differently. Everything is pointing to that again. All right, so The moon, where is it? Oh, it's still in Capricorn. There we go. Will sextile talk to the hand Lilith. They keep all repeating these aspects. But then Vesta, the inner flame, but also the state, will conjunct Pluto. The big transformation out there and within is highlighted. The flame is highlighted, but it's also emphasizing this flame about changing from the inside out. Okay. The moon will then oppose Jupiter. There's going to be some big emotions, I think, this week again. Oh, by the way, when the moon's in Capricorn, it is again out of bounds. It actually went out of bounds late Sagittarius. So we finish the week Friday, Saturday with the moon out of bounds again. So a lot more, still very emotional time. Wow. And so then Venus, the last aspect of the day, Venus newly in Aquarius will trine Sedna, which is showing us what we need to change. Gemini is change, and about how we need to change our alliances, perceptions, views to create this new paradigm in this massive period, the turning of the ages. All right, cards. And sorry it's so long. By the way, I do break this down, and I do break it down into a written version on Substack and try and just distill it. But I like the details. I like kind of like following the trajectory of things as well, which is why I've changed to kind of doing the video and then trying to distill it down. So what I would suggest doing, if you have the time, is watching the video, but then having the written post on Substack and going, okay, this is a reminder each day of what's happening. Okay. So the cards, 7 of threads. First of all, 7 is a lovely number, but this is your red thread of courage. Okay, wearing my red thread. Let me show you. There's my red thread. Always have my red thread. And so red thread of courage. And if you don't know what the red thread is, people wear the red thread to represent the interconnectedness of the divine feminine on earth. So not just women, to my mind. But anyway, this is your red thread of courage. This is protection, but this is I am holding my ground. And Rumi said, who has seen a shadow separated from the light? So, and Eckhart Tolle, who I don't love, but anyway, I like this quote, said, the fires of suffering become the light of consciousness. So it's a great quote for what we're seeing. People are suffering, and yes, and it's horrible and awful that people are suffering, but it's helping to become it's helping people to step into the light of consciousness, right? By seeing it out in the world or within themselves. So love to everybody that is suffering, of course, and do stuff to try and help them and protect them, because the 7 of threads is also protection. So 2 of blades. This is disagreement, and there's going to be a lot of disagreement this week, but there's probably also going to be a lot of disagreement within you. So this is really about brute force. So this is saying don't use brute force with yourself or others. And there's a great quote from Maya Angelou, who I love. You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. 2 is a decision as well, right? And so there's another quote here from Deepak Chopra, who's a bit he was in the Epstein files, or the emails. So but anyway, if you obsess over whether you are making the right decision, you are basically assuming that the universe will reward you for one thing and punish you for another. The universe has no fixed agenda. Once you make any decision, it works around that decision. There is no right or wrong, only a series of possibilities that shift with each thought, feeling, and action that you experience. So I thought you needed that quote for this week. Knowledge could be helpful, balance is a possibility, decisions are required, but compromise might find a way. That's what the book says as well. So then we get the Goddess of Discs, and I think this is the one that doesn't have a page in this book because I found the fault in her book, but she knows, and I think she's redone it. But anyway, I've got the old book. So the Goddess of Discs. I always tune into this myself. This is bird, and discs are earth signs, but birds are usually messages, words, or thinking, things that your thoughts that come to you, synchronicities, things like that. To my mind, this is saying, pay attention, bring it down into your body so you know what to do with it. Alrighty, so now the 3 witch cards just felt very appropriate. I watched that author's TEDx talk, by the way, and I'm sure if you just look on YouTube, I'll post it below, but I think you will really enjoy it. She's quite the woman, and she's speaking my language. Anyway, this is the Trailblazer. So you can see it. There's a bird, a dove there following, and then behind, I always do a photograph over on Substack. I think I'll photograph the tarot and these witch cards separately this time. So this is the Trailblazer. And this one has all the animals behind it, which is interesting because the zodiac is the circle of animals. But anyway, this is a pioneering moment. In order to chart where you're going and empower the path making, you must know your place, woman. Only when you know your deservedness and embody your inherent value can you move with the confidence and radiance required to create your own path. The witch has shifted her allegiance from pleasing to pleasure, from subservient to subversive. Through the very act of claiming her inner knowing as her highest authority, she's willing to abandon everyone else's expectation and approval before she'll abandon herself. She has stopped fearing her path and started blazing it, loyal to the visions in her head and the longing of her heart. She trusts her intuition to guide her to the right thing for her, even when she can't see the entire path or explain it to a mind of logic. Stop looking for the footprints of those who have gone before you. Don't settle for how it's been for others. Blaze your own trail. Sometimes I just think, oh, I should just read those cards because the astrology is telling me this. And anyway, and it's kind of like how I started about me, saying I don't care anymore. I'm blazing my own trail, right? I'm not overthinking it or taking on the opinions of others. But this is the Sisterhood of Reciprocity, was the second card. Women dancing in the woods, frolicking in the woods, you could say. So tend to your partnerships. This could be a time to review or negotiate business, renew romance or friendship, or nurture the very partnership you have with your own soul. Much of our world suffers from a lack of understanding what our ancestors knew so well, that all life is dependent on the generosity of our planet. There is no thriving without her good graces for food, water, shelter, and beauty, and we do well to remember it with reciprocity. Is it time to share, celebrate her bounty, give back to her resources, to your relationships or communities, or to yourself? Long ago, we honoured the lack of resources in the winter season with hopeful light-giving ceremonies. We celebrated the harvest with offerings and gratitude. We marked each season, each birth, death, and love affair by honouring our Earth Mother as benefactress. A witch carries this practice forward, knowing that all parts of her life are interdependent with the elements, creatures, and planets of the earth, the same way that her healthy psyche relies on all her parts working together. She must balance her genius with her shadow, reconcile her love with her fear, strike a balance between her logic and emotion. All parts of her life she is proud of must dance with those monstrous parts she fears in order to experience a bountiful, creative life. Take stock of where you are entwined in healthy partnership and where you are not. This is a time for tending the dance of reciprocity. So, and then we got the divine masculine, which I found really interesting. So, I had not come across this card in this deck before. So, you can see it. He's like a sultan. Look at that, ancient sultan. So chances are, unless you are one of the very lucky few, you weren't raised with a living example of divine masculine embodied. I laugh ironically. No, I was not. Because the men in our culture are also bombarded with messages of what they should and shouldn't be. They are required to ditch their inner feminine in order to be perceived as tough and powerful. They often contort themselves to meet the unrealistic demands of a toxic patriarchy, which means we weren't exposed to the healthy traits of masculinity. Balanced leadership, conscious protection, and healthy assertiveness were in short supply. As a result, the masculine voice inside our heads is often critical, harsh, and domineering. Your femininity, with your masculine or feminine biologically, deserves an inner masculine presence who encourages, leads, challenges, and downright worships your femininity. A witch knows that while she may not have been raised with a good example of this divine masculine, it's her job to discover a means of growing him within herself. She is willing to release the toxic thoughts and ideals inside her head that would diminish or try to control her. She is willing to embrace the fierce, wild God inside herself, who can hold her feminine in his great protective arms. Now is the time to banish the drill sergeant of the psyche and formulate a new relationship to the encouraging male presence inside yourself. And I'm chuckling. Anyway, please don't forget to subscribe, and leave me a comment. If you're on Substack reading this, leave me a comment, and just know that we are in this big turning period, and it's up to you basically. So, I really hope you always listen to the messages, take them within, and learn to embrace this energy within yourself, and just then to get on your mission to be a part of the change in the world. I love you. See you next time.